I just cleared some disk space off of my phone, so now I can do some more yapping. I get stressed when my phone runs out of disk space. That's how obsessed I am with running my mouth on YouTube and Facebook and wherever else I have time to stick it. So what does that mean? I don't know. King of narcissism or something, maybe. I don't know. But God save me. I got other problems too, so it's not like that's the only thing I have to worry about. I got other issues also. So I'll give you a chemtrail update real quick, a Tampa Bay chemtrail update. Perfectly clear skies today, so that's good. Now yesterday it was perfectly clear in the morning on my way to work. Perfectly clear for the most part. Yeah, excuse me, for the majority of the day, for most of the day. In the afternoon, there were a couple, 2 or 3. Actually, when I was leaving work, there was one airplane directly above head, laying down a super thick trail. It's hard to say, was it a thicker than normal trail, or was the plane just closer than other planes that I've seen before? I don't know. But the interesting thing is that by the time I got home, which is about 45 minutes, I have about a 45-minute commute, that trail had spread out, tremendously. I mean, just tremendous. Must have dispersed maybe 10 times its original width. And again, as visible dispersed as concentrated, as visible after the plane had been gone for 45 minutes as it was when the plane was initially there. And the other interesting thing is that on my way home, I saw, clouds, and I said, okay, well, those are just clouds. But then when I got a different vantage point, like from a high place on a bridge or something like that, I could see, wait a minute, those are not clouds, those are also trails of some kind. So the thing is that these things, when they really become dispersed, they really do begin to look just like clouds. Obviously not the fluffy kind of clouds, not that kind, but their disbursement in the sky becomes so irregular that it's difficult to tell the difference between them and clouds. So you really have to get a good vantage point where you can see a long, where you have a panoramic view of the sky, because then you can see, wait a minute, that cloud starts over there and it ends way over there, right? And it's generally like, straight. It's straight, and then you see another one straight, another one straight. It's like, normal clouds don't. I mean, sometimes yes, obviously. I mean, that's what's so difficult about this. Is you have all these things. So, for example, right now there's a bunch of wispy clouds. So basically when you have a cloud that is really long, this is going to sound so stupid, I know, but long and wispy, because it has spread out, from a concentrated size. You can, like right now I'm seeing some things, I mean, and some of them are X's. They do the X's all the time, either the cross hatches or the X's. Of course, the cross hatch is just a repeated X, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I see long, wispy, dispersed clouds right now, and so sometimes it's weird. You see one or two laying down these things, and then like that one morning, like I said, there must have been like 10 or 20 jets laying down these trails, chemtrails, contrails, trails, whatever they are, which is easy enough to dismiss. But then when you see them in patterns, laying down patterns like cross-stitch patterns and checker patterns, it becomes less and less easy to dismiss, and just the fact that we are able to dismiss it, just because we choose to dismiss it, that doesn't mean that there's nothing there. The fact that we obsess over it and talk about it and analyze it, it doesn't mean that there is anything there. So, I mean, there's it's just like anything else. There's a world of possibilities here. People, the thing that I did want to talk about, though, very briefly on this subject, is I've been having these conversations past couple days with guys like, well, there'd have to be so many people involved. You know, I mean, why? Number one, it's mysterious and odd that anybody would even want to do this. It's mysterious as to what their objectives might be. And then there's that constant repeating refrain that people say, and it's very understandable that they say this because it's a very intuitive conclusion or thought to have. It's like, well, how could so many people be involved and it be a secret, right? And I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, well, wait a minute. Now, you have Mao Zedong. He killed, I don't know, 60 million, 80 million Chinese. You have Stalin killed 20 million Russians. Of course, Zedong was Chinese. Of course, Stalin was Russian. You have Hitler, who killed 40, I don't know. I mean, I was reading the other day that 9 million German civilians died under Hitler's rule. So those are Germans. You have 6 million Jews. Okay, well, yes, they were Jewish, but they were also German. You know, I mean, Pol Pot killed Cambodians. Obviously, Pol Pot was Cambodian, but he killed people that wore glasses, right? So you start thinking about that, and you start thinking, yeah, but wait a minute. Stalin never raised his actual own personal hand to anybody, right? He had thousands of his fellow countrymen, in other words, thousands of fellow Russians, go out and kill millions of fellow Russians. Hitler, same thing. Pol Pot, same thing. Zedong, same thing. Saddam Hussein, same thing. The Ayatollahs, I mean, there are atrocities that have been committed that never made it to the history books, folks. There are atrocities that have been committed that never made it to the nightly news. I mean, this kind of thing happens all the time. I don't mean like every day all the time, but then again, maybe it does happen every day all the time. I mean, it's a big world, right? And so we're sitting over here saying, well, it could never happen because there have to be too many people involved, and well, it just don't make no sense anyway. It's like, what do you mean it doesn't make it? Yeah, I don't understand it. You don't understand it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to somebody, you know? So this is not what is being proposed here theoretically. Nobody knows. Well, somebody knows, but we don't know. Nobody knows with certainty what's going on, but what we are saying might be going on is not anything that's even unusual in the world. It's unusual in our lives. You know, I like what Rush Limbaugh used to say. He used to say that, I assume he still says it, I just don't listen anymore. Because I've gone on to more radical voices like Alex Jones, and I'll get to Alex Jones in a minute, but if I have a chance. But the point is that Rush used to say that most people's version of history begins the day they were born, right? Oh my gosh, look, there's a plane right there, laying a track. Most people's view of history, or version of history, or idea of history, perspective on history, begins the day they were born. So, you know, I would say that it's even more restricted than that. Not only does our view of history begin the day we were born, its parameters are defined by our own personal life experiences. All right, so if we've never had something happen to us, we've never seen something happen, we've never known anybody that it happened to, pretty much we, you know, intellectually we might like play around with it in our heads, you know, but I mean, in terms of actually accepting it as something that's real, we could easily be convinced that pretty much anything that we haven't been personally exposed to, we could be convinced that it's. I mean, we could be convinced either. We could go either way, right? I mean, our grasp on it as a fact is a very weak and slippery grasp. I mean, it just depends on whoever has a convincing voice, the most convincing voice. I mean, that, you know, and regardless of what conclusion we come to as to whether something is possible, it has literally zero bearing on its actual potential for being possible, right? So I think these are interesting things to consider. You know, I think they're very interesting. I think the fact that, I mean, just think about the scale of an operation that is required to kill 60 million of your own countrymen, like Mao Zedong did. I mean, that's a massive scale. I mean, that puts anything Disney World or NASA or not FISA, the NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, whatever it's called, whatever those letters stand for. What's that one there? So we're getting the tobacco, firearms, TF, whatever, ATF. The ATF. It's not the ATF. It's the other one though. The one that's the FEMA camp. FEMA, the one that FEMA people are always talking about. I mean, it put that scale of it puts anything they did to shame, right? I mean, and yet it was either secretive, or this is where we bump into the harsh reality that in order for something to be done that nobody knows about, okay, it doesn't have to be secret. They do it right in front of you, but because of the psychological control that they have over people, that the powers that be, the government, the media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the billionaires that run the government, own the government, influence the government. Maybe it's not about control. Maybe it's just about influence. Semantical issues going on here. But whatever, the powers that be, because of the psychological control, the threat of public humiliation that they hang over our heads. If you believe this, we're going to make fun of you, and we're going to laugh at you, and we're going to call you names. And if you're a person of any influence, you risk losing your job. You risk, So now nobody of any influence is going to talk about it because they don't want to lose their job. And then, so that controls the people, the little people, because if the big people aren't talking about it, well, then we don't feel like we have the authority to talk about things that the big people aren't talking about because we figure that they're smarter than us, right? So, so they do it. So either it was done in secret or it was done right out in front of everybody, but they controlled the minds and the wills of the population to either A, convince themselves that what they were seeing wasn't true and wasn't really happening, or B, convince them to believe that what they were seeing, in spite of the fact that it is true, that they nevertheless they didn't have any power to stop it. So you might as well just keep your mouth shut, not talk about it, don't think about it, don't even discuss it with yourself inside your own head, right? So, is this possible? Whatever's going on possible? I mean, yeah. Do I understand it? No. Do I have a theory? Do I have my own theories about? Yeah. I mean, the thing about our world and computers and technology has really brought this to light, made the idea, okay, made the idea of it accessible to everybody, is that everything is becoming abstracted and virtualized, right? So we jump on our computers and we transfer money around. There's no real money. We're just hitting keystrokes, We jump on our computers and we move this, we move that, we move pictures, we move videos, we drive cars online, we do this online, we live live. People actually have lives online. I don't understand how all that works, but SimCity, and they work and work and work and work, and they somehow they can sell things that they've accomplished in SimCity and to other people, and it's all abstracted, it's all virtual. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen only in the in the realm of technology. It happens in the quote unquote real world too. So think about what Zedong and Hitler did. They corralled up a bunch of people and put them in pens and camps and whatever, and then he killed them. Right? It's not. It was a process. First you discredit them. Then you silence them, or maybe those two can be reversed. Right? Actually, it's better to silence them first. That's what the right to speech free speech is all about. It's about protecting your physical body, because if they take away your right to speech, well, then they can discredit you. And since you don't have the right to speak, you can't defend yourself. And then once they discredit you, well, they can do anything they want to you, because they can say that you eat babies in the middle of the night by the light of the moon. And then they can take you out and shoot you, and nobody complains because, well, you eat babies in the middle of the night by the light of the moon, and you deserve to be shot. So and you can't say anything. You can't say that's not true, because you don't have freedom. You don't have the right. You don't have freedom of speech, right? So. That's what they did. It was a process, but the short story is they corralled all these people up and they killed them. That's the short story. Well, you can't do that these days, okay? Number one, because of freedom of speech, and America's a champion in the world for freedom of speech. I mean, it's in our Constitution. I'm sure we're not the only country that's that's a champion for that cause. I'm sure we're not the only country that has that in our Constitution. Maybe we are. Maybe we're one of the few. I'm not sure which it is, A, B, or C. I'm not sure. I imagine that it's probably I forgot the order, but that I mentioned them in. So I don't know what's A and what's B and what's C, but I think it's probably B. I think that there probably are some other countries that have that in their constitution. But we are, what has been a new phrase that I learned recently, the hammer of the earth. I think that phrase comes from the book of Enoch, if I'm not mistaken. Could maybe not, but it comes from some sacred writing. So we are the hammer of the earth. So we are the most renowned country that has that in its constitution, and we are a champion for that. I mean, the totalitarian countries are basically toilets. I mean, they're like toilets of the earth. There have been a few totalitarian societies that rose to great fame, but they were always ruled by a benevolent totalitarian, not an evil. I mean, evil creates toilets. I mean, so Pol Pot, Hitler. I mean, it's just they all. Maybe not right away. They have their moments of shining, glittering, porcelain white, shiny white, shiny porcelain glory, like gold, maybe like a toilet made out of gold or something. But in the end, they're always revealed to be what they are. They're toilets, So I digressed here a little bit. I apologize. I'm kind of lost as to where I was now. Let me think. I'm talking about Hitler, talking about totalitarian, benevolent dictators. I completely forgot. So they abstracted and virtualized. Okay, so they corralled up. We can't do that anymore. You can't corral up 10 million people and kill them anymore. I mean, it's very unpopular. You'll be the powers that be are forced into benevolence for the moment, forced into a state of being benevolent for the moment. So you can't do it. So what do? They abstract it and they virtualize it. Now, instead of killing 10 million people with one swipe, they kill 2% in this area, 2% in this area. You add them all up, it's probably, 10 million. But it's a little here, a little there. And if you stop and you think about, so the chemtrail, the aluminum in the air, they can spray the air, and they have a very firm grasp on the statistical admissions to the hospitals, the emergency rooms, the doctor reportings, the healthcare plans, the healthcare companies. All the data funnels up somewhere, somehow. I don't know how. If nothing else, it has been stated that the NSA scoops up literally every byte of data that travels across these wires anywhere. So you don't have to pillory the healthcare companies. You don't have to pillory the doctors. You don't have to. You don't even really have to pillory the telecommunications companies. All these pipes of information go somewhere. So, and all you got to do is tap into one of them, and you siphon off the data that's going by. You're not even really interfering with the flow of data, although you probably are. They probably just don't care. But once that degradation of data transfer becomes the standard, nobody knows. They just think that's how fast data goes. So that's another issue. And it's just theoretical. I don't know that to be a fact anyway. But they can track. They can track. We run 50 campaigns of whatever this is in a month. They know that it has a 2% effect. So how many people did we kill? Well, we didn't really kill them. We just and then they always have some benevolent sophistry as to why this is good. They like fluoride in the water, for example. It helps your teeth. Well, so really now the government loves us so much that they're going to put chemicals in the water to help us have better teeth. Oh, isn't that sweet? Isn't that just darling? They're protecting our teeth. Well, was public rate of cavities really that much of an issue that the government? It's just kind of silly. But they do that with some. But then what happens is, now fluoride in and of itself may or may not be that bad. It is said to be bad, but may or may not. But what they do is, over time, they start ordering all the fluoride from China. Okay, now there's no control over the quality, right? And then they start working with the people in China to put stuff the quote-unquote fluoride that isn't fluoride, but they call it fluoride because the can that it comes in says fluoride in it, but God only knows what. You've heard about the stuff from China. I mean, the drywall, and it's full of poison. You buy $1 billion of this stuff, and you have to send it all back. Maybe we weren't supposed to find out it was full of poison. But so it becomes a legal loophole. Now you've got to challenge the purity of the fluoride. Now you're challenging the purity of the fluoride. How are you going to win that battle? I mean, who has the money to challenge the purity of fluoride? It's like, well, we test this fluoride. It has all of these industrial chemicals in it. And they're like, oh, well, that must have been a bad batch. And then it's like, well, call this guy over here at this agency. He'll talk to the people that buy the fluoride, and we'll find out what's going on. Well, that becomes a 6-month, who a 6-month rabbit chasing expedition. It's like, well, wait a minute, something isn't right here. Well, we don't know what's going on. Then they test another batch. We test another batch. It's just, they send you a good batch. So you test the good batch, nothing's wrong. There's no end to the games that can be played once you put a few people in control of the resources that either belong to or supply the needs for millions of people. There's no end to the games that can be played. So I don't know how I got off into all that, but the point is that yes, is there a precedent for what is being proposed here in history? It's like, of course, likely there's been, we know about 100 of them, right? But that means it's like a criminal that gets caught robbing houses. You might not have caught him until he robbed his 100th house. These dictators that commit these atrocities. How many do we catch? How many do we hear about? How many they have closed societies. They speak their own languages. How are you going to go in there and just investigate to find out what's really going on? And not get killed while you're there. So a lot of them have probably gotten away with it. Nobody even knew about it, right? Or what about the people that just kill 10,000 people? The dictators that just kill the mini dictators. So that's the chemtrail report and my rambling digression about the fact that there is a historical precedent for many thousands, if not millions, of people in a society conspiring against many thousands, if not millions, of their fellow countrymen. That is a precedent. I also wanted to tag on to the end of this a very quick thing about racism. I've come to the conclusion that racism is just a giant red herring for tyranny, because racism falls under the title or the banner of tyranny anyway. It is a form of tyranny in and of itself, right? But you know what? Really, it is much more common in history for tyrants to kill people of their own nationality, of their own race, of their own religion. I'm going to kill these ABC Lutherans because I'm a DEF Lutheran. They're not the right kind of Lutheran, so I'm going to go kill them. Of their own religion, of their own gender, of their that's much more common. But people run around like with their hair on fire. Racism, you're a racist. Like, yeah, but you're a tyrant. You're even if I was a racist, I'm not, but if I was, you would still be much more of a threat than me because you're a tyrant. Tyrants are much more common than racists. Tyrants that do evil things to people that are just like them are much more common in history than people who go out and kill people who are not like them. Right? So let's just say for the sake of argument, it's not true. Let's just say for the sake of argument that I am a racist. It's not really true, but we're just saying it for the sake of argument because I want to expose your game. Okay? And your game is accuse people of wrong before they have a chance to find out that you're the one who is 10 times the wrong that you're accusing other people of being. That's the game. And that's the reason I think that the Bible calls Satan the great accuser. Because it's all about projection. It's all about that's like a force field, right? You build up this force field around you. Nothing can get through because you're so busy sending out, darts, You're so busy sending out bullets that no bullets can get into you because, people are too busy dodging and ducking and weaving your own. It's like, it's very disorienting to be confused of something that you're not guilty of, you know? And when you're a good person, you basically have a lifestyle and a habit of doing self-assessment. So you're in the habit of checking yourself for things that are not right anyway. Now somebody comes and says something is not right, you're in a state of shock and despair because you're like, wait a minute, how could I miss that? Right? I mean, you genuinely entertain the idea that you might be what they're accusing you of being, and that occupies your time and energy in and of itself. And while you're preoccupied, they're over there finding their next victim, and everybody's just off balance and disoriented and weird, you know? And the whole thing just turns weird. That's what the whole you're a racist, you're a racist, you're a racist, that's racist, that's racist. That's what it's all about. It's just about putting people on edge and making everything weird and, you know, disoriented and everybody off balance. So, all right, that's the chemtrail update that expanded the conversation into what it theoretically could be all about, and the fact that, yes, there is a historical precedent. As in fact, there are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of historical precedents for what is being proposed. It's just that it's abstracted and spread out across an entire population. You know, there's a random 2 or 3% people that are targeted, generally the elderly, the weak, and the people who are already sick. I mean, that's who tyrants always go after, because they're predators. And predators always go after the weak and the sick and the old, you know, because they're an easy target. They're an easy hit. Now, the interesting thing about this is when you go after it, it weakens the people who are next to them in category, right? What kills some, weakens more. Once you kill those off, now you have a new target population. So interesting, bizarre, weird, I know that, but I think worthy of consideration. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.